What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is iRate Reviews, the show where I go over a comic book, its art, its story, give you my impressions, and let you know whether it's something to go back to the shop for or not. What we're going to be talking about is the debut issue of Gamora #1. So this isn't quite like the other Guardians of the Galaxy grounded titles, which are basically saying, hey, these guys are stranded on Earth and this is their story so far. This is really about an origin kind of story and retelling what happened to Gamora on her 18th birthday and beyond. So let's dive right into the story, shall we? What we see is that Gamora is ultimately extremely unhappy with her current surroundings simply because she has become the ward of Thanos, and that was at the massacre of her own people. And this is her birthday, the day of that massacre, just reminded to her for the 18th time. And what Thanos is a loving father, as he would give any daughter, is what she really needs for some sort of, comeuppance and repentance. So he's got a really good idea as to what she should get for her birthday. At the same time, we actually see basically the passing of the royal Badoon, the leader of their people. So it's a situation where he's kind of confessing on his deathbed something that's happened, and ultimately for this race, they usually have male heirs, but this is interesting because there's a daughter that has survived. Next, we kind of open up on this ceremony. The royal Badoon is passed, and then we see the crowning, the ceremony of moving one of the princes into the royal position of the king of the Badoon. And who comes romping out of every place? It's got to be Gamora, because she is there to just slaughter these people in cold blood. She's just being merciless in everything, and I really like the action and the set pieces that go along with this. They see that there's actually one Badoon that they reclaim because Thanos, being the smart father that he is, the smart person that he sees himself as a master strategist. And while everything's going on, Nebula is complaining that she doesn't get enough respect from Thanos. And Thanos is just like, maybe if you didn't want it so bad, I wouldn't give it to you. So it's just like, haha, touche, Thanos, touche. But while Gamora is exacting her revenge, Thanos and Nebula are headed into the Badoon stronghold so that way they can kind of take over their treasure hoard and figure out exactly where this one specific artifact that Thanos is looking for is. However, they don't necessarily find it. Instead, they find another person, another Badoon, this master of information, so to speak, and he might be able to lead them to something else, I guess. So they take him prisoner, bring him back onto the spaceship, so that way he can be interrogated later by Nebula. Once everybody gets back onto the ship, ultimately we get to see the relationship between Gamora and Nebula, which is tenuous at best. They really don't like each other, and ultimately it comes to the point where they're about to kill each other pretty handily. It's like, you got cat fighting in space, and it's Gamora versus Nebula, and it's super cool. I really like the way that the art is put together for this one, but Thanos comes in, and ultimately he's just like, if Gamora dies by your hand, I will, destroy you, basically erase you from the universe. He's like threatening Nebula, who just wants to be loved by Thanos. She just wants to see that appreciation. So for somebody that was upcycled, she's really got this reverence for Thanos. During the interrogation and when it takes place, Nebula uncovers the truth that there's a princess, a last remaining Badoon, that is currently alive on Ubalex. And Ubalex is a planet, so to speak, that we're going to find out about a little bit later, but she relays this information to Gamora, who immediately starts driving, her driving force is now to eliminate this last Badoon, who is currently located on this deathly planet. So while Thanos and Nebula are having kind of a chess match, she takes off in her spaceship until Thanos is like wondering, where is Gamora? I need a little bit smarter competition than what you provide for me, Nebula, because he's an amazing dad. And I love Thanos the father. He's such a dick. It's so fun that he's just like a complete bastard to Nebula. It's awesome. When he finds out that she's headed to Ubalex, he is super pissed. He's about to destroy Nebula because it's just like, you tricked her. It's like, no. She knew exactly what she was getting into, and we find out that Ubalex is a planet on the outside of a singularity. So essentially it is caught in the gravitational swirl, and those people that go to Ubalex don't really return. And this is very similar to what we saw on New Earth back in the Jonathan Hickman run on the Fantastic Four, which was kind of like a planet that was caught on the edge, and there's time distortion and things like that. It was pretty cool concept, but it's going to be interesting to see where this kind of ends up as far as Gamora's situation is concerned. What we do find is that the Badoon are also looking for this same kind of last remnant of the Badoon culture, last bit of royalty, and they've contacted kind of like a bounty hunter that's currently on that planet already, so I'm not sure how he's going to get that baby out of there, but oh well, that's just the start of the plot, and that's where we get into the review of this thing. And what we find is that Gamora #1 is way more fun than what I expected. I wasn't really expecting a whole heck of a lot from this book, but Nicole Perlman, who also did the screenplay for Guardians of the Galaxy with James Gunn, she just told a really good story, and I'm really interested in the actual character arc of Gamora. She made her very sympathetic from the start, so that way you could kind of force some sort of connection with her. Instead of just having her be like this cold-blooded assassin, there's really this sense of warmth that is kind of shut down in this very cold environment that she lives in. But she is a merciless, ruthless assassin, a tool of Thanos. So it's kind of walking that fine line of being like, she does such really bad stuff, but she feels like she could be such a good person in a different situation. You know, she's kind of hell-bent on revenge, and she's coping with whatever happens to her in order to get to that point. And this could be like her final moment. Like, she's like, if I finally kill these guys, I'm going to feel better. But we all know that's not the case. But this is her journey to go through that. As far as the art's concerned, the art is fantastic. I love the way that Gamora looks. I love the way that Nebula looks. I like the way that Thanos looks. I like the portrayal of space. You know, this is just a really good book overall. You know, it's just one of those things where if you have even an inkling of interest in Gamora or the Guardians of the Galaxy or how this kind of backstory plays out, Gamora #1 is a book that you're going to have to pick up. It's just a really solid story that's going to be telling a big, long tale of how Gamora went through this part of her life and ultimately how she ended up with the Guardians of the Galaxy. Hopefully this is going to be a long-running one so that way we can kind of tie up some of those loose ends. Highly recommend that you go grab it if you haven't had a chance and if you have any kind of interest in Gamora or the Guardians. So that's my review of Gamora #1, but I want to know what you guys thought too if you read it, so hit me up in the comments down below and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe right there to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.